Let's go ahead and get on the live. There we go. We're live on Instagram and we are recording for the YouTube. Let's wait for people to come in. I got my tea ready. We're going to be talking about the astrology of this week. Let's wait for everybody to come in. Good morning, Grand Rising. How's everybody doing? Or good afternoon. It's 12 o'clock over here on the West Coast, so it's already kind of late in the day. It's already a little late in the day. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. I hope you guys have all been doing amazing. I hope the astrology of November wasn't too difficult. Welcome to December. Welcome to the last month of the year. Can you believe it? We've all made it through 2025 in one piece. Well, most of us. Um, there's been a lot of loss and stuff like that. There's been a lot of grief and stuff. So, we also got to acknowledge that. There's kind of like I don't know. It's like we're in this timeline where it's like, there's like a generational transfer happening right now in a lot of different ways. Um, like generational transfer of power, obviously, with like politics and things like this. But we're also in this like generational transfer in terms of family hierarchies. And I was talking about this last week, how we're in this period of like there's kind of like the elderly kind of like passing away and like the torch is being passed to like the next generation. Um, so we're having like new family matriarchs, new family leaders kind of like stepping into the limelight. It's like we're seeing this like kind of turning of the tides when it comes to ancestry and like family evolution. And it makes sense that this would be a message that would come through right now, or that would be something that would be very prominent, because we just had Jupiter go retrograde in the sign of Cancer, right? Um, Jupiter just started retrograding a few weeks ago. I think Jupiter and Mercury started retrograding around the same time. Someone said old structures collapsing. Definitely, yeah, that's part of the Saturn in Pisces. Um, so we had Saturn retrograde in Pisces for the last like what 4 months, and Saturn just went direct last week, on top of Mercury going direct last week. So, yeah, we're gonna be talking about that. We're gonna be talking about Mercury Saturn direct, and we're also gonna be talking about what Mercury moving into Sagittarius is going to mean. Mercury does move back into Sagittarius, I believe on Sunday, but I'll double check that. Don't write that down, anybody. Mercury went back into Sag on Sunday. I'm not sure about that yet. I have to take a look at the charts. And we have a full moon in Gemini. Oh, we have full moon in Gemini coming up on Thursday. I think this is going to be a pretty fun, exciting full moon, though. Kind of like a very karmic faded full moon. We'll go into more deets about that. Mainly because this full moon that's coming up on Thursday is going to aspect the nodes with an exact square. So what's really interesting about this full moon in Gemini that we have coming up is it's going to be, I believe, at 13 degrees. And it's going to square the North Node and the South Node, who are in Pisces and Virgo. And so this is going to be in general, this is a very important season for mutable signs, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius. But for all of us collectively, whatever our narrative and our stories have been attached to the nodes, whatever the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo has been about for you. Take a look at your houses, the houses that you have in Pisces and Virgo, and that access, right? Whatever you have in Pisces and Virgo, or even if you have anything around the middle degrees of the other mutable signs, Sagittarius or Gemini, you want to kind of pay attention and think about what's been moving in your life or what's been flowing in your life since the beginning of this year when the nodes went into Pisces and Virgo. We had our eclipses going through Libra and Aries up until the end of last year. And then we transitioned into the Pisces and Virgo eclipses this year. So, you know, the nodes being squared by this full moon in Gemini tells us that there's going to be some activity, there's going to be some activation of the nodes, and there's going to be some activity and some movement around our karmic narrative associated with the nodes. So if you are a Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, or Sagittarius, if you have anything around the middle degrees of a mutable sign, this full moon coming up on this Thursday on the 4th, but also this month in general, even with the new moon in Sagittarius, you kind of want to think about, what's been moving, what's been transitioning, what's been kind of changing in your life. And one of the big things that we're going to see this week with Mercury and Saturn moving direct and with them in a trine with each other. So what's really cool is they actually make an exact trine with each other on Sunday, December 7th. Oh yeah, Mercury's not exiting Scorpio this week. It's going to be next week that Mercury dips his toes back in Sagittarius. But we have Mercury and Saturn now moving forward. They've been retrograde, right? Mercury's been retrograde for the last 3 weeks. Saturn's been retrograde for the last like 3.5, 4 months. So now that they're moving direct in a trine with each other, which I think is going to be super interesting. So with Mercury direct, with in conjunction with Saturn, there is long-lasting, permanent decisions and choices that people are going to be making starting this week. And whatever information, was revealed to them over the last 3 weeks during Mercury's retrograde, now that Mercury's direct starting this week, we're going to be putting this information into practice, or we're going to be using this information to build something new or to like restructure something or to like apply what we've learned in some type of way and to go in a direction that is about kind of going in a direction that may be a little bit more responsible, a little bit more safe. I don't know, it's interesting because Sag season invites us to take risks, right? The sun just went into, not the sun just went into Sagittarius, but the sun is 9 degrees, 9 days into Sag. Um, in Sag season being ruled by Jupiter, Sag season typically invites us to expand and grow, to envision, right? It's the last month of the year. Right? And so you typically with Sag season, we're thinking about the future. We're thinking about, oh, next year. And we're thinking about like expansion and growth in some type of way with Sagittarius being ruled by Jupiter. But we have Jupiter in Cancer who just went retrograde. And even though Mercury and Saturn have gone direct, there's still some kind of hesitation. There's still some kind of waiting or some kind of patience or some kind of, okay, let's just see what happens before we make like a move or before we like make a big change or something like this. So if you're kind of feeling caught in between a space of desiring a huge expansion and change and dramatic like shifts, but also like there's still foundational work that you got to do. There's still important decisions that you have to make. There's still like, I's that you got to dot. There's T's that you got to cross. You still got to get like the launching pad ready maybe. You want to honor that. You want to you don't want to like try to rush or force through things right now, especially this week and next week during our full moon and Gemini cycle, okay? Um, Someone said, how long is that here for? How long is what here for? You could be a little bit more detailed about that question. I'll love to answer that. Someone said that's exactly how I'm feeling. Yeah. So we need to be so even though Saturn and Mercury are direct, it takes them a while to like pick up speed and start moving. So they're gonna be kind of sitting at these degrees. Um, yeah, I'm looking at Mercury, who's just sitting at 21 degrees. Saturn's sitting at 25 all week. He's not moving at all. So, it takes them a while to pick up speed. It's like the planets right when they're done with the retrograde, it takes them some time to recover from the retrograde. Like they've been moving backwards. Now they got to make a U-turn and then they're going to start moving forwards again, right? So, coming out of this kind of Saturn Mercury retrograde this week, things may feel a little clunky or confusing, or we still may feel a little unsure about things, or we may feel like we're like shifting direction slowly but surely. So just be really patient with that, okay? Someone said the retro in Cancer. So Jupiter retrogrades for about 3 months at a time, 3 to 4 months. Let me just double check. Hold on. It takes Jupiter about, let's see. Hold on. I'll answer your question right now. How long is Jupiter going to be retrograde? Let's see. November, December, January, February, March. I'm looking at March and he of 2026 and he's still retrograde. Okay, so he goes direct at the believe at the end of March. So yeah, around 4 months, 3.5, 4 months. He spends retrograde. He goes direct. Actually, it's gonna be in March. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, right here at the beginning of March, he goes direct. So what is that? November. He went retrograde middle of November, kind of early November, November, December, January, February, and then early March. Yeah, 4 months. Yeah, like 4 months. And then he goes direct on the, I'll tell you what day in March of 2026. So Jupiter is going to go direct on the from the 9th to the 10th, somewhere around there, the 9th or the 10th of March. So we're going to have Jupiter retrograde you know, for winter. And Jupiter retrograde is about kind of integrating lessons around spirituality, around our beliefs, around, you know, our morals and ethics, around expansion and growth. But Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, especially because um, well, actually, he's not in a trine with Saturn. Well, he's not going to be in a trine. Hold on, let me go back to where we're at right now. I went all the way up to next year. Oh yeah, he's in a trine with Saturn. Yeah. So Jupiter retrograde, it's interesting because Mercury and Saturn, even though they've gone direct and they're in a trine with each other, they're forming this grand trine with Jupiter retrograde. So this kind of tells us that there's still Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. There's still stuff from the past regarding family, regarding emotional investment, regarding ancestry, regarding what we find safe or secure, or what we find safe, what we find secure, what home is, what family means to us. Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. There's still some integration, some processing. There's still something back there with this Jupiter retrograde in Cancer that's kind of holding us back a little bit. That's telling us, wait a minute, are you sure you want to leave your family behind? Wait a minute. Are you sure you've processed these emotions? Wait a minute. Are you sure you released yourself karmically from these like karmic from these like narratives and these stories connected to your family or connected to your past? It feels like even though Saturn and Mercury are moving forward, the Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, there's still something that we have to reason with. And even maybe with Saturn, Mercury direct, but this trine, them forming this trine of Jupiter retrograde, maybe there's something we gotta bring with us. You know what I mean? There's something we still gotta bring with us from the past that we can't fully abandon or let go. So but it's beautiful. Let me tell you, this is really nice though. Let me tell you, this is some of the best astrology that we're going to be getting, that we're going to get this year, that we've gotten this year. And this is also going to be some of the best astrology that we get, in this kind of 10-year period. I think this grand trine that's been happening between Saturn, Jupiter, and then these various planets, the sun, now Mercury, we had Venus in a grand trine with Saturn and Jupiter last week. It's some of the best astrology that we're going to get, but we're not really seeing it externally in the material world. We're seeing the goodness of this astrology more internally, more emotionally, because it's water sign energy. This is grand water trine. So it's more emotionally, more psychically, more spiritually, more intuitively. It's like we're getting a lot of closure, completion, or even a lot of healing and a lot of reconciliation around water element things. So this is like family, this is like emotional safety. This is like emotional mental well-being. This is more about your spiritual, foundation, your creativity, you know what I mean? Your connection to your intuition, the unseen, the unknown, the water element, right? So we're not really seeing the benefits of this astrology so much in the material world. The material world, the objective world, the physical world, which is more earth energy, right, is kind of afflicted right now. It's kind of going through changes. Uranus just retrograded back into Taurus, right? We have the South Node in Virgo. So, I'm looking at this, full moon that's coming up with aspecting the South Node in Virgo and the North Node in Pisces, and we're still having to deal with people losing jobs. We're still having to deal with people getting sick, getting ill. We're still having to deal with people, lung illnesses and things like this season with this full moon coming up. The South Node in Virgo, right? Squaring this full moon in Gemini, South Node, full moon, Gemini, South Node in Virgo. These are both ruled by Mercury. Mercury is going to be, I believe, at 22 degrees. Let me see what degree Mercury's going to be. Hold on Thursday for a full moon. Yeah, he's at 22 degrees. Yeah, he's at 22. Yeah, Mercury's gonna be at 22 degrees. So it's kind of giving like, we're still, the material world in our relationship with it is still undergoing review. It's still undergoing transition and change. And this may look like many different things for people, right? This could be a period where you're going through really intense career pivots, or you want to change the way that you're doing business, or you're realizing, wait a minute, I need to focus more of my time and my energy into my health, into my wellness, into my day to day. I need to focus more of my time and my energy into my family, into things that matter, into my creativity, my creative ventures, into learning, education. I really do think that the full moon in Gemini this week is going to pull many people back to class in some type of way. Or they're going to get like a teacher, a coach, a mentor, or they may even realize it's time for you to start stepping into that role of mentor, teacher, coach, offering classes, offering some kind of knowledge or wisdom. Maybe it's time for you to start writing your book. Maybe it's time for you to get that website together. You know what I mean? Something like this with the full moon in Gemini coming up. Because why? Gemini and Sagittarius, this is the axis of learning and teaching and wisdom and knowledge and information, right? So that Sagittarius is the professor, is the guru, right? Is the teacher, is the coach, and Gemini is the student, is is the student, is the student to the guru, is the mentee, right? Is the one that's in development, right? So when we're talking about a full moon in Gemini coming up, squaring the nodes, I think it's really interesting because what some people may, oh, this is really interesting. Some people may realize or may discover with this full moon is that with what they've been learning or with what they've been growing, what they've been growing, whatever talents, whatever skill sets, whatever that they've been perfecting or whatever, maybe it's time to start taking what you know and taking what you've learned and start applying it to the real world and start offering it as a service in some type of way. Maybe it's time for you to start turning your skill set, your knowledge, your talent, your creativity into material success or material abundance or into money in some type of way. And if you are finding yourself in that place and you're finding it a little uncomfortable making that transition, you don't have to do it all by yourself. I think it's important to, get a teacher or a guru or a mentor or a coach, or even work with AI or something. I don't know, that could help you with making that transition in some type of way. But a full moon in Gemini always pushes us to learn in some type of way. Because Gemini is the sign of information and students and learning and education. And so I really do think that this full moon in Gemini is going to be calling us to learn something new in some type of way, or even to apply what we've learned and what we now know into, creating something with it, creating something materially with it. And what's also really interesting, if you put the full moon in Gemini on the rising, right? So this is putting Gemini on the rising. If you put the full moon in the rising, you have in the second house, you have Cancer, which is where Jupiter is at, right? We have Mercury in the sixth house from Gemini on the ascendant in Scorpio. So the sixth house away from Gemini is Scorpio. In the 10th house of career for Gemini is Pisces, which is where Saturn and the North Node are at, right? So if I'm reading the full moon chart collectively by putting Gemini on the ascendant and the full moon on the ascendant, what we get is a chart that has the grand water trine between Saturn, Mercury, and Jupiter happening in houses 2, 6, and 10. So this tells us that there's some kind of alignment, or so there's some kind of activation, or there's some kind of question being posited to us collectively around money, second house, around work, our daily habits and our health, sixth house, and around our career direction and our vision and kind of like what our calling is or what our higher purpose is or what we're here to do, which is our 10th house. North Node and Saturn are in the 10th house from the full moon, right? That we have coming up on Thursday. Mercury's in the sixth house from the full moon, and Jupiter is in the second house from the full moon. So this kind of 2, 6, 10. This is that grand trine, houses 2, 6, and 10. These are the houses of the material world. These are the houses of our relationship to material world. These are the houses of money. These are the houses of career. These are the houses of our jobs, our health, right? Like everything to do with the material world. So I do think that this full moon in Gemini is going to be highlighting a certain relationship that we need to either heal or we need to build or that we need to reimagine or we need to evolve. Certain relationship that we have with the material world that, you know, we got to go about it maybe in a different way. Maybe it's time to start making money in a different way. Maybe it's time to start being a little bit more creative with the way that you envision with your like work and career. Or maybe you thought that you were going to be doing X, Y, and Z. Oh, I thought I was going to be this, and I thought I was going to do that, and I went to school for this, right? And the divine is now telling you, wait a minute, surprise, surprise. You're actually going to be doing something else. You're going to be going over here. You're going to be going over there. You're going to be doing something different, right? So I think it's important that, we really listen to our intuition and we listen to our feelings and our emotions. We listen to the water element within ourselves right now if we're confused and needing direction because the water element is kind of guiding us right now, all right? And if, very simply, right? If it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't feel good, and this can be with anything, if it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't bring you joy, if it makes you sad, if it makes you depressed, if it makes you feel confused, if it makes you feel anxious, if it makes you frustrated, if it makes you just feel tired or exhausted, then you got to question your relationship to that thing. You got to ask yourself why you're continuing to participate in that thing that isn't bringing you a sense of emotional fulfillment, of emotional stability, emotional, excitement or something. Because it's really the water element that's telling us a lot right now. Because of all the water energy in the sky. Mercury's in Scorpio. Mercury just went direct in Scorpio. So the way he's relaying information when he's in Scorpio, a water sign is going to be through the water element. That's how Mercury's telling us. He's kind of giving us information based off of feeling right now and based off of intuition, what your gut is also telling you, right? Mercury's in Scorpio. Scorpio rules the digestive system, the intestine, the colon, the gut, and Mercury, this Mercury retrograde that we're coming out of in Scorpio and this kind of new moon in Taurus or this new moon in Scorpio cycle that we're wrapping up is like we're wrapping up the new moon in Scorpio that we had that was opposite Uranus in Taurus, right? We had that new moon 2 weeks ago. We're wrapping it up this week. Well, this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio that we're wrapped up this week, or that we wrapped up as of yesterday, is kind of telling us like in that new moon that we had in Scorpio opposite Uranus, it's kind of telling us to let shit go. Let shit go. That is unhealthy, toxic. That is no longer for you. That is, keeping you emotionally or financially entangled in some type of way or entrapped in some type of way. If there's trust issues there, there's trauma there, there's resentment there, there's anger there, there's betrayal there, right? There's dishonesty there. Like if those are things that are in the air, if those are things that you're sitting with, right? Those are emotions, those are feelings, those are sentiments that you're sitting with. The new moon in Scorpio a few weeks ago, opposite that Uranus and Taurus, is like, okay, it's time to let in the Mercury retrograde that ended in Scorpio, right? It's time to let that shit go. If you can't forget, if you're not willing to like just let that shit go and transmute it into forgiveness, into healing, into whatever, okay, into compassion or whatever, then you gotta let it go. You can't take it with you. You know what I mean? I think the astrology of Scorpio season, especially while Venus was there, was really pushing us to let some ish go and to release some things, right? And if we have found coming out of this Mercury retrograde this week, if we found that, hey, guess what? You know what? I'm not ready to forgive them. I'm not ready to let that shit go. I'm not ready to release this. I'm not, I'm not ready to clear it out. You're still emotionally invested in some kind of toxicity. You're still emotionally invested in some type of way. That's fine. That's okay. But you're just gonna have to deal with it now. You're just gonna have to sit with that. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, the full moon is in Gemini. It's interesting because when we come out of Scorpio season and we move into Gemini into Sag season, we shift our focus away from relationships and we shift our focus back to the self. You know, Libra season and Scorpio season because they are these Venus Mars seasons and they're on that axis with Taurus and Aries. They're Venus Mars seasons. You know, those seasons really focus on relationships, really focus on partnerships, really focus on like the give and take that we have with others. But when we enter Sag season and the sun moves into Sag, the focus comes back onto the self because the axis of Sag and Gemini, these are not this axis, right? It's like the third house and the ninth house. It's not so much about relationships and partnerships and others. It's about ourself. And it's about kind of like our vision, our wisdom, our learning, our education, our knowledge, like our skill set, like what we have to give to society, right? Gemini's is a sign that's connected to others in a way, but it's not individual one-on-one relationships. Gemini rules over what? Our siblings, our aunts, our uncles, our extended family, our neighbors, our neighborhood, the local environment, right? Like Gemini, your third house is your immediate local environment, your neighborhood, like your neighbors, like your aunts and your uncles, like your siblings, right? Like these are the people that are embodied by the sign of Gemini. So, Gemini, we step out with the sign of Gemini, with the full moon coming up in Gemini, we step out of our individual one-on-one relationships and we go to hang out with our neighbors. We go to hang out with our aunts and our uncles and our siblings, right? Like it's about kind of like extended family, family that goes above and beyond just our individual one-on-one intimate relationships. Okay. That's what we get with Gemini. And Sagittarius is the sign of foreigners, the ninth house people. But Sagittarius is also the sign of people that we go to for wisdom and knowledge. So the ninth house energy, Sagittarius, these are our teachers, our gurus, our professors, our coaches, our mentors. To some extent, we would even say our therapists, our doctors, our dentists. These are the Sagittarius people in our life. These are the ninth house people in our life. Also, our grandparents. Okay. So while your third house in Gemini is your aunts and your uncles and your siblings, your ninth house in the sign of Sagittarius is more connected to your grandparents, but the benevolent, good, loving grandparents that you have, or even like the teachers, the mentors, the gurus that you have that are benevolent, they bring goodness into your life. Jupiter, right? Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So you know that grandparent, that grandma that always shows up for you. She cooks you, she cooks for you on your birthday. She always gives you the best gifts. She takes you out places, she paid for you to get your first car or whatever. Like that's what Sag is. That's what the ninth house and that's what Sagittarius is. And so what I think is really interesting about this transition away from Scorpio season into Gemini, into Sag season is this focus away from relationships and others, but this focus to like, it's kind of like family, but it's not like mother, father family. It's not Cancer, Capricorn. It's family it's like, like our family community, like our communal family, our neighbors, our aunts and our uncles, our siblings, our cousins, our cousins. The Gemini also rules your cousins, right? And who do you see during the holiday season? Thanksgiving going into Christmas. Who do you see? You see your aunts, your uncles, your cousins. You see all of them, right? It's not so much about your mother and your father. It's not so much about that, even though it is kind of, but it's not because that's the axis of Cancer and Capricorn, but it's more about your extended family, right? That's what we get with the axis of Gemini and Sag. Okay. So I want you guys to think about all these things that I've been talking about right now, coming up for the full moon in Gemini, right? Because the full moon in Gemini, it's when the moon's in Gemini, but the sun's in Sagittarius. But what's also really interesting is we get a full moon in Gemini ruled by Mercury right as Mercury comes out of retrograde, right? So Mercury, the dispositor of this full moon in Gemini, that's coming up on Thursday, is going to be Mercury, who's in Scorpio, and they are in aversion to one another. So Gemini and Scorpio as signs, they quincunx each other. They are in what we call an aversion. They do not aspect each other by sign. They don't see each other. Okay. This is because if you put Gemini on the rising, like I was doing before with the when I was talking about the full moon, with this the houses 2, 6, and 10 activated for this full moon, um, you get Scorpio in the sixth house, which is where Mercury's at. So this kind of tells us that this full moon coming up on Thursday is going to focus on sixth house things: your job, your health, your routines, your habits, your day to day, like the mundane. The sixth house is your mundane lived experience, the shit that you do every day. Okay, it is boring. Honestly, the sixth house is a very boring place. It's like, there's not a lot of excitement there, typically for most people, right? I'm just kind of speaking kind of generally right now. But yeah, I want you guys to think about that with this full moon, okay? Because there's going to be a sixth house focus for the full moon because the dispositor of the full moon is Mercury, who's in the sixth from the full moon in Gemini. Okay. All right, let me pour myself some tea really quick. I made myself some chamomile ginger green tea. Ginger, well, what's a good way to say that? Chamomile ginger green tea. Yeah, I think that's a good way to say that. Mm. Also, another thing, this is just a random download, but I wanted to share this with you guys. You might be doing something this holiday season, that's very different than what you've done in previous years. So let's say every year you go to grandma's, every year you go to grandpa's, every year you do, something like very consistently, very the same. This will be a year where more than likely many people are going to be doing something very different for the holiday season, for the holiday year. The reason being is because I'm looking at, for the full moon in Gemini, I'm looking at the full moon aspecting the south node in the fourth house. So this tells me that there's something different, there's something unconventional happening with with family this season. But it's going to be for the full moon too. It's going to be for the full moon. We're going to see it for the next few weeks. Something unconventional, something different. Okay. So, full moon in Gemini ruled by Mercury and Scorpio. This kind of tells us that this full moon, there's more information coming to the surface. There's going to be more tensions with jobs in the workplace. I just got to let y'all know now, like, if you are someone that has a job and you're working full time, um, be very mindful of, not mindful, but alert and aware and pay attention to what's happening at the job because there's big changes in the workplace coming for a lot of people coming out of this full moon and even going into next year, and I'll talk more about that. Um, One of the things, though, that we are going to see very strongly with this full moon, even this week and next week, it's like during this full moon cycle, this week, next week, even going into the third week of November, is a lot of people making these really long-term commitment to decisions and like good positive decisions or choices coming in as well for people. Okay. I want you guys to understand that as well. Okay. Because it's Saturn and Mercury in a trine with Jupiter. So this tells us that even though Jupiter is retrograde, there's still a lot of positive, beneficial kind of doors opening, energy opening, forward movement, kind of having to step into the fog, having to step into the darkness. There's still that energy. There's still like a lot of positive good stuff. I've actually been going to like an astrology meetup every Monday. It happens on Monday nights over here in Portland, like in real life in person. And someone who I think they are a Libra rising. Yeah, there's someone that goes to the event, and she's a Libra rising, and she just got a dream job. She got a job that she's like been waiting for, and like it's like it was like alignment, right? For her, it was like a divine alignment opportunity. She ended up getting that job last week, and we can see that it made so much sense in her chart because the grand water trine is happening for air sign risings. If you're a Libra, Aquarius, or Gemini rising, the air sign grand water trine or the grand water trine is happening between houses 2, 6, and 10 for you guys. Like I was just explaining right now with the full moon in Gemini that we're gonna have with Gemini on the ascendant when I was putting the moon on the rising, right? On the ascendant. So if you're an Aquarius, Libra, or Gemini rising, the grand water trine energy is happening in houses 2, 6, and 10, which is your work, your job, your career houses. So, so cool to see how the astrology for her manifested as like this beautiful job that, this amazing job that she got that she'd been wanting for a long time, and it finally culminated. And with the North Node with the North Node in Saturn going direct in her sixth house of jobs, because Libra has Pisces in the sixth house of jobs. We have the North Node of Destiny there. We had Saturn who just went direct there, and we had Jupiter in Cancer, right? Which is in the 10th house, exalted in the 10th house for Libra rising. So that's really great. 10th house Jupiter is being liked by a boss, right? So Libra risings, if you have Jupiter in your 10th right now, it's like your bosses, your leaders, are giving you opportunity right now, your public image, your public reputation. Like if you go for something, if you try to achieve something, you try to, you know, um, move up in the world in some type of way, you're more than likely going to get a positive outcome. More than likely something good's going to come of it, you know? Because why? You have Jupiter in your 10th supporting you. You have Jupiter that strong, Jupiter in the 10th in exaltation ruling over the 6th house in Pisces, where the North Node and where Saturn's at. We have Mercury and Saturn between the 2nd and the 10th and the 6th that just went for they're going to be trining each other in a few days, right? So there's a lot of cool beneficial stuff happening right now for air sign risings. But you want no matter where your rising sign is, you want to take a look at your water sign houses right now because that's where a lot of the good beneficial magical stuff is happening with your water sign houses. Regardless of your rising sign, you're right. Looking at your rising, you want to see where this grand water trine energy is at. How is this moving in your life? Right? It depends. It can be this can, for fire sign risings, you guys have the water signs in houses 4, 8, and 12. So this is more about intuitive development, emotional development. The fire signs have been learning. They've been learning about their feelings, and they've been learning about other feelings other than anger. Other feelings other than anger. Because houses 4, 8, and 12 have been activated for the fire signs, right? The earth signs, their friendships, their social life, their communication life, their love life, for the earth signs. Houses 3, 7, and 11 have been activated for you guys, right? And the water signs have just been coming into alignment. So the water signs have just been houses 1, 5, and 10 for the water sign risings. They've been figuring themselves out, right? Have we not? Have we? Pisces, Scorpio, Cancer rising. Have you been figuring yourself out? I hope you have. Yeah, getting a right relationship with your body and your health and your creativity and your confidence and your belief systems and all that, your consciousness. Coming back to the creator. Working on your faith, my water signs. Anyways, but yeah, so we need to be very mindful and pay attention to the blessings and the goodness that this grand water trine is also trying to bring because Mercury and Saturn are going to form a trine with Jupiter this week, specifically on Sunday. Is it on Sunday? I think so, yeah. Yeah, Mercury trine Saturn. Mercury at 25, Saturn at 25, Jupiter at 24. Saturday and Sunday, the 6th and the 7th of this week. Really good, optimistic, positive, amazing days. I really do think that there's people making very concrete, conclusive decisions. And this, I don't know why, I'm also feeling like This feels like people, oh, Gemini decisions. You have a full moon in Gemini. So Gemini is about like conversation, decision making, kind of talking things through, brainstorming. It's gonna be a very active thing for people. A lot of people are gonna be brainstorming plans. So okay, let me tell you the download I just got. I got the download that a lot of people are planning something for next year. They're planning a big move, a big change. They're planning a launch. Like there's something about we're using this energy, this moment, this kind of sad season, this like full moon in Gemini for planning and for making a big decision or a big choice next year. That's what it looks like. Looks like it's a foundational choice for a lot of people, a foundational decision. Looks like it's a decision that's going to, kind of challenge their norm or what's familiar or what's safe or their comfort zone in some type of way. Okay. So just sit with that. No pressure. All right. No pressure. Okay. Let's keep going. So another thing that we have, it's actually going to be next week. Yeah, it'll be next week, but it's going to be forming this weekend. We're going to have Saturn and Mars coming into a square with each other, and that's going to be a little interesting. Saturn and Mars, when they square each other, that tends to be a moment of conflict, or even people challenging like government authority. There's a lot of mutable energy. I don't know. I'm just looking at a lot of the mutable. I'm looking at a lot of mutable energy, in the air. And when there's so much mutability in the air, things kind of feel very unsure, unstable. Okay. But with Mars square Saturn, Mars and Sag wants us to expand and grow, wants us to be courageous and brave, wants us to kind of like go out and seek and quest, right? But Saturn in Pisces is like, oh no, wait a minute, you may not be ready. So, that Saturn square Mars energy that's going to be showing up, we're gonna feel it next week, but it starts culminating or it starts building this weekend. I want you guys to be mindful of that, especially if you have anything around 25 degrees of immutable sign. You might be caught up in this Mars Saturn square, and you might come under attack in some type of way. I actually know someone that has Saturn right on their sun right now, and they are finding it really hard just to do anything. Like their energy has been really, really low, and they want to like start and plan new things, but they're just finding it really hard to do that right now. So with Mars squaring that Saturn, coming into that square with Saturn, if you are someone that has anything around 25 degrees of immutable sign, I want you to be mindful of this Mars Saturn square because Saturn is very stop and Mars is very go. And when they're in a square with each other, we can feel like we want to push past Saturn's limitations, or we can feel like we want to push past Saturn's delays or Saturn's hardships and difficulties, but we can end up causing more distress or more discomfort or causing ourselves more anguish or more pain or even more loss. So, I think I'll mention this again next week, but if you are someone that is kind of caught up in the Mars Saturn square, if you have anything around 25 degrees of immutable sign where you're being aspected by the Saturn Mars square, just be careful, okay? Just be mindful. Pisces and Sagittarius are signs ruled by what planet? Jupiter. So these both of these signs, what they have in common is they love to do too much of things in different ways. Okay, like Sag likes to party too much. Pisces likes to drink too much alcohol. Sag likes to have too much fun. Pisces likes to be sad too much. Right? Like these are the banes of the Jupiter ruled signs, Pisces and Sag. It's just like just doing. There's like too much of something. It's just like too much. It's like there's too much sadness, there's too much joy, there's too much drinking, there's too much partying, there's just too much of something. So we need to be very mindful of limitation with Saturn square Jupiter between Pisces and Sagittarius, Saturn and Pisces squaring Mars and Sag. We need to be mindful of limitation and of trying to deal with our limitations in ways or trying to cope with frustration in ways that are unhealthy or like avoiding coping with frustration or even disappointment in ways that are unhealthy. So this is like, okay, if we're feeling sad, we don't just turn to alcohol. If we're feeling sad, we don't just go to the casino and gamble all our money away, right? we're feeling sad or frustrated, we don't just go out and party and kind of waste our energy or waste our money or waste our, right? Stuff like that. So we just need to be mindful, okay, with the Saturn square Mars. All right. This weekend, especially going into next week, but I will talk about it, okay? I will talk about it. But yeah. I'm also seeing with Mercury trine Saturn, it's so interesting. Like lease agreements or even like purchasing agreements being drafted up. So this could be like, oh yeah, I'm purchasing a car, so we're drafting up the loan agreement. Or, oh yeah, I'm going to be moving, so I have to get like my paperwork ready and I have to, submit my pay stubs and I have to blah 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 blah. Or, oh yeah, I'm setting myself up to buy a house or buy property next year, so I got to start working on my credit and something like this. There's something about like getting documentation or paperwork or like getting things that we got to file together and getting that stuff like processed or getting that stuff submitted and stuff like that. Also, now that Mercury is direct, if there's been delays or setbacks associated with documentation, especially like filing of documents, like let's say you're waiting for the court to respond, you're waiting for the government to respond to something that you're waiting for a callback or something, we're going to start to see a lot of that stuff come in now that Mercury's direct, okay? And especially with like higher authorities. So government authorities, international government authorities, let's say you're waiting for something from, Homeland Security, you're waiting for something from the Immigration Department, you're waiting for your passport to come in, something like that. We're going to start to see a lot of that kind of like processing, a lot of that paperwork starts to like move forward, okay? A lot of that stuff starts to like come in and also receiving good positive stuff, good positive news with that stuff. So receiving the approvals, receiving the exception because of Jupiter's grace, Jupiter's blessings, Jupiter trine Saturn, Jupiter trine Mercury, right? Saturn and Mercury now direct. So this seems like it's like a really good positive thing. Also, we also gotta keep in mind that Sun, Mars, and Venus are also in Sagittarius, which is a sign ruled by Jupiter. So, there's a lot of Jupiterian energy in the air. The signs of Pisces and Sag are heavily activated right now. We have Mars and Venus in Sag as of today. So, this is very exciting. Venus in Sag is fun. I don't know if anybody has natal Venus in Sag. It's a little bit of a reckless Venus. I will say, Venus and Gemini and Venus and Sag, whenever I read those in a chart, when someone has those, it reads very similar, different but similar. Because there's a little bit of recklessness and irresponsibility when it comes to love and relationships. And there's a lightheartedness, there's a silliness that we get with Venus in Sag and Venus in Gemini. These are Venus placements that they're here for a good time. They're not here for a long time. Okay. I don't want to generalize or anything like that, right? But, Venus and Sag is very playful. It's a very lighthearted thing. It's kind of like flirting with, you know, someone brings, a family friend to Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, and then you end up, liking her or liking him or whatever, and you guys flirt a little bit, things like that, right? Stuff like that. That's the Venus and Sag. And Venus and Sag is also meeting people when you're on the go, when you're traveling, and meeting people that are foreigners or falling in love with a foreigner. Meeting people. Also, what I've noticed about Venus and Sag and Gemini is people that have that, they tend to be very attracted to people that are educated or smart or intelligent. So they love when people are college educated. They love nerds, I the Venus and Gemini and Sag. I don't know what it is. Y'all love you some nerds. Y'all love yourself a brainy man. Venus and Gemini loves the nerds, and Venus and Sag loves the athletes. You know, and I've noticed this with Sag women. They got a Sag moon, they got Sag Venus, they got Sag rising, or even Gemini rising. They could be opposite too. Gemini moon, Gemini Venus, or Gemini rising. They love themselves an athletic man. They love themselves a man who, is either nerdy or athletic. Nerdy Gemini, athletic Sag. My coworker is a Gemini Venus, and I see it hardcore. He loves when I talk about nerd stuff. He doesn't know. Someone said, "Yeah, his hot, sexy brain." Yeah, that's like a Venus and Gemini, Venus and Sag thing. Venus and Sag is very fun for meeting new people, though. Um, Venus and Sag, this season is really good for meeting new people and for kind of like expanding and growing your social circles and things like this. The people that are going to receive the most benefit from Venus and Sag is going to be the air signs and the fire signs. If you're an air or fire rising, Venus and Sag should be pretty good for you, pretty beneficial for you. I love that for you. Water signs and earth signs, Venus and Sag. I don't know. Earth signs, I don't know. Whenever Venus goes into a fire sign, earth signs, if you're earth sign rising, Virgo, Capricorn, Taurus rising, whenever Venus goes into a fire sign, um, you guys need to be mindful of what's going on in your relationships because those are challenging houses for you. The fire signs are houses 4, 8, and 12. And when Venus goes into your fourth, eighth, or 12th house, you can go through a relationship transition, evolution, or change. Or especially if you're already in a relationship, you can experience a moment of difficulty, a moment of betrayal, a moment of hardship. Okay. Earth sign risings, Venus and Sag. All right. Be a little mindful. But for fire and earth, all and Venus and Sag for water sign risings, it's good for money and career and work and things like this, and your health, money, career, work, your material world things. Okay, if you're a water sign rising, because water sign risings have fire signs in houses 2, 6, and 10. And when I'm talking about the houses being broken down like this, I'm using whole sign. Okay, I'm not using Placidus. So keep your mind open. A lot of you are, you're schooled in Western astrology, in modern astrology, and that's beautiful. So use Placidus, and that's totally fine. That's totally okay. But whenever I'm talking about this stuff, I am talking about this using whole sign houses to make it applicable to everybody. And also, I am a traditional astrologer, so I do use whole sign houses when breaking down charts. Okay. But yeah, all right. I just wanted to mention that. Venus and Sag, feisty, fun, independent, free-spirited Venus, Venus and Sag is gonna ask us, now that Venus is in Sagittarius as of this week, um, she's gonna ask us, where do we find, when it comes to relationships and partnerships, do we have a sense of a sense of it, my language, my my words today are a little funky. Okay, sorry about that. Do we have a sense of adventure in our relationship? Do I have a sense of freedom, a sense of space in my relationship? Does my relationship make me feel excited, right? Does my relationship bring me joy? Does my relationship have a vision? Is there a vision of the future, right? Um, it- Venus and Sag ask these questions. Venus in Sagittarius, that's a Venus that needs some space. She needs a little bit of space to be able to roam and do her thing. She needs independence. And I think this is another thing when Venus is in a fire sign, people that have Venus in a fire sign, like Venus in Aries, Venus in Sag, Venus in Leo, they do not like clingy, codependent, needy. They don't like that energy in relationships. They don't like that. That's a water sign, earth sign thing. Okay, and Libras. Libras, water signs and earth signs, they like that kind of clinginess, that kind of neediness, that kind of like mopey energy. They like that. Not Venus in Sag, in Leo, and in Aries. No, no, no. Venus in those signs likes a strong, independent partner, likes a partner who has their own life, has their own money, has their own friends, has their own stuff, right? So whether you don't need me, right? I think Venus and Gemini and Sag, I think these Venuses, this access that, is a very difficult access when it comes to love. I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of the readings I've done for Gemini and Sag risings, or for those that have Venus in Sag or Gemini, their love lives are like an adventure. Okay, their love lives, Venus and Sag, Gemini, Sag rising, Gemini rising, Sag moon, Gemini moon as well, because we also look to the moon for relationships and love and astrology. Um, your love life is an adventure. Their love life is a story. Their love life is a melodrama. Their love life is like a rougher New York version of Bridgerton. Okay, that's what it's like. Okay, it's difficult because you got to think about it, right? Sag and Gemini, these are signs ruled by Jupiter's rules over Sag. Gemini rules over Mercury or is ruled by Mercury. But these are masculine signs. These are not the feminine signs of Jupiter, sides of Jupiter and Mercury. The feminine side of Mercury is Virgo, and the feminine side of Jupiter is Pisces. Okay, these are the masculine sides of Jupiter and Mercury, Gemini and Sag. All right, and they're having fun. They want to party. They want to experience lighthearted, free energy when it comes to love and relationships. They're not trying to get all serious and trying to get all deep and trying to get all, no, they want a partner. They want love that is more fun, that's more spacious, that's more expansive, that's more curious, that's more physical. It's physical, Sag, fire sign, and cerebral, Gemini, right? It's mental, right? They want to talk. They want to feel their partner. They want to talk to their partner, right? But like in terms like feel, like touch, like I'm not talking about feeling, like emotion. I'm not talking about that type of feeling. So I think with Venus and Sag over the next few weeks, we got to ask ourselves, you know, we got to ask ourselves, it's not even asking ourselves, it's reminding ourselves. Relationships are meant to feel fun. Relationships need to give us a little bit of space, a little bit of independence. Relationships you need to feel like an adventure. Like they need to be curious. Right? We need to be able to talk to our partners. We need to be able to ask questions. We need to be able to go travel with them and stuff like this. Venus and Sag and Gemini love going on vacation and traveling with their partner, you know? And I also think that's where you can find out a lot about the people that you're connected to. It's so interesting. I've had friendships or relationships either grow and expand during vacation and travel, with a particular person, or, I've gone on vacation with someone and that vacation really showed me who they were and it brought the friendship or it brought the relationship in some type of way to an end or it evolved it in some type of way, right? Applied pressure. So yeah, with Venus and Sag over the next few weeks, Venus takes about 3 weeks to transit a sign, so she's going to be there for most of December. Um, we need to be mindful. We need to ask ourselves, and we need to be introspective, I would even say, about our relationships. And we need to make sure that we're giving our partner a sense of space, a sense of freedom. We need to be independent, being able to be kind of like autonomous and independent emotionally, mentally in a relationship is very hard, is very, very tough. But I think, the gift and the blessing of Sag and Gemini and these signs is about like having that certain amount of awareness or having that certain awareness of self in a way to where we can be our own person. We can think for ourselves. We can venture by ourselves. We can journey by ourselves. We can even, pursue our spiritual endeavors or whatever in a way that's independent to where we don't necessarily need anybody, right? Sag and Gemini, these are signs that are actually very independent. These are very independent signs. And I think Venus and Sagittarius wants to remind us that you can be independent and autonomous even in relationship, even in partnership. You know what I mean? You like being in relationship and partnership doesn't necessarily mean that you need to sacrifice or you need to give up your autonomy, your freedom or your independence or even your sense of self, you know? For some people, a relationship to them can feel like, oh, if I get in a relationship, oh, I got to give up so much. I got to give up myself. I got to give up my passions. I got to give up my independence. I got to give up that. No, you actually don't, right? You can reimagine or you can define what relationship looks like to you, you know? And so I would invite you to think about that, reflect on that while Venus is in Sag. It's a very fun place for Venus, though, I will say. All right. Someone said I've been wanting to go horse riding so badly through the desert. Then go, baby. Tell me. Take some video and post it on your stories so we can all participate. Gemini sun, but I embody the Sag axis of being a wild horse who doesn't want to be tamed. I can't be tamed. I can't be blamed. What's that? Who's that? Who sang that song? I can't be tamed. I can't be tamed. Miley, of course. Where's her Venus? I think let's see what with Miley. Is she a let's see where her Venus is at. I can't. She's a Sag. Oh, she got Venus and Capricorn. Oh, she got Venus Uranus together. Miley. A mess. Hardworking woman though. Anger problems. Oh, very powerful, very angry. It's funny how I brought her up. She actually has Mercury and the moon in Scorpio, and she has a 1 degree sun in Sagittarius. So Miley Cyrus has Venus Uranus conjunction. She cannot be tamed. You cannot tell this woman what to do. She has Venus, Uranus, and Neptune all together. And she's a Taurus rising with Scorpio in the seventh house. She has Moon, Mercury, Pluto all conjunct in Scorpio in the seventh. Oh, Lord Jesus. She has Jupiter in Libra. She's here to learn a lot. She got her dad's love karma. Yeah, she got her daddy's love karma. Yeah, this is an angry woman right here. When she gets pissed off, when Miley gets mad at her dad, you do not want to be there. You don't want to be present. When she gets pissed off at her dad, or mad at her dad, oh, she lets him know. Okay. I think her and her, let's see, Miley Cyrus and dad fighting. Let's see if there's stories about them fighting. Oh, they've reconciled. Yeah, they've reconciled since 2024. She thanked her mother in 2024, not her father. Yep. You could even see it in her chart. She has Saturn in the 10th house. Her and her dad do not get along. She has Saturn in Aquarius. Her dad is just kind of like an asshole. Her dad is not even present. Like he's like successful and handsome, but her dad is the type of guy, you know how her chart reads? Her dad is the type of guy that whenever he fucks up or messes up with her, he just wants to give her money or like send her on vacation or like give her something. It's like I can't really show up for you emotionally or spiritually or conversationally, but when I fuck up, the way that I can make it up to you is by giving you money and by like sending you on vacation. And that's not what she wants. She doesn't want that. She has a Scorpio moon, Pluto, Mercury. All she wants is her daddy's love. Saturn in the 10th house in Aquarius. She just wants her dad's love and she also wants her dad's like approval in a way, like his admiration, his approval, and things like that. But yes, Venus Uranus is the same. It's similar as like having kind of, I don't want to say it's similar. Venus Uranus is not similar to Venus and Sag, but where it is similar, she has a ninth house Venus, so I guess it's the same thing. Like Venus and Sag and having a ninth house Venus kind of like the same. It's kind of like, oh, interesting. Oh, that gave me a whole that parallel, drawing that parallel just gave me a whole bunch of new downloads. Um, it's interesting because that kind of feels like relationship that's very expansive or that's very aligned with like spirit or aligned with morals and ethics or aligned with like values. But a relationship that's very open-minded and egalitarian. I think this is another thing with Venus and Gemini and Venus and Sag. And this is also coming from the energy of having Venus in the ninth, which could be similar to Venus in Sag. Um, a relationship that's egalitarian, that's equal, where where the partners are we treat each other as equals. There's none of this imbalance of power that we get with love, which is something that we see with Taurus, Aries, Scorpio, and Libra. Taurus, Aries, Scorpio, and Libra, these are signs that always, I swear, experience imbalances of power in relationships and abuses of power. Like, and it can be like physical abuse, it could be psychological abuse, it could be financial abuse. So it could be like how power or how resources are like used and abused for, as like tools of manipulation or control, or to like keep one partner disempowered. But we don't get that with Sag and Gemini. Sag and Gemini is different. This is more, it's like with Sag and Gemini, it's more about egalitarianism and equality in relationships. And it's more about you're going to treat me with respect. You're going to treat me with fairness, right? And we're going to be equals, right? In that type of way. I also do think that Gemini and Sag in many ways are a little unconventional in the way that they form relationships or even the type of relationships that they get into. There tends to be some kind of I want to it's not a rebellion, but it's kind of like it's like we don't really care about that. It's like we don't really care about gender, like the gender norms or their gendered expectations. Like the role that I'm supposed to play as a man or a woman, like, in the relationship and what society tells me, how I'm supposed to behave like Sag and Gemini, they don't really care about that. They're not really concerned about that. They're not really, oh yeah, I want to be the good housewife and I want to be the good house husband and all that. And like they're not really worried about that. As long as their partner is treating them with fairness and respect and with equality. And I've seen this with Gemini, Sag. Women are very bossy. These are women are very masculine energies. If you know any women that are Gemini or Sag rising, or they got a Gemini, Sag moon, or even like their Venus there, these are women that I've noticed, Gemini, Sag rising women, or even when they have their moon there. They're the dominant one in the relationship a lot of times. They'll be with the man that's a little bit weaker, or they'll even be with the partner that's a little bit weaker. But they can be the strong dominant one in the relationship, regardless of gender, regardless if it's a man or a woman. But these are we don't tend to think of Gemini and Sag as signs of that are like strong or dominant or that are bossy. But I don't know, my loves. From my experience, from what I've seen, I don't know. I've seen some pretty bossy, dominant women with these placements. Especially Sag. Yeah, Sag is definitely a bossy sign, especially when a woman has a Sag. She has Sag in her chart. Anyways, okay, let's go. Let's move on to the astrology of the week. Enough about Miley. Enough about Venus and Sag. Enough about all of that hoopla. Let's talk about the astrology of the week. We're at 1 o'clock. We're an hour in. You have a fire, moon, and a Mars. Oh, Lord Jesus. She is the boss. She is the boss. We answer to her. Okay, let's see. All right. Let me put this back. Gotta apply time to the chart so I know where we're at. Okay, cool. I can't believe we're already at the end of 2025, y'all. Where did this year go? I feel like this year just was like, hey, what's up? Okay, I'm just passing through. Okay, gotta go. Bye. It's like that's how it feels like this year was. It just like flew by. Time is actually speeding up though. They have shown us this. The Earth's Earth is not orbit, Earth's spinning faster, and they believe that Earth is orbit is moving faster. There's like things are speeding up. Things are moving faster. Okay. Things are moving faster. So that's the truth. All right, so we start off today with the moon in Aries, moon square Jupiter, moon trine Mars, moon separating from a trine with Mars. Um, yeah, Mars and Sag ruling over the moon in Aries for the last few days. The moon in Aries, we had our new moon in Scorpio. That is the sixth house away from our new moon. Kind of like getting back to business. I don't know. Today feels like kind of getting back to business. The moon is with Chiron right now in Aries. And the moon and Chiron are squaring Jupiter right now today. So if there is a wounding that comes up today, it's probably going to be around men. It's probably going to be around power. It's probably going to be around anger. You might be angry or irritable, or you might feel frustrated today because the moon's in Aries. This could have been the last week, over this weekend, okay? Because the moon's been in Aries with Mars and Sag. But the moon is making a trine to Mars, so this is feeling a little bit more physical, a little bit more energetic. feeling a little bit more inspired. Maybe you're feeling more, excited with the moon in Aries today, trining, separating from a trine with Mars. But one of the things I think we got to be mindful of today going into tomorrow with the moon Chiron squaring Jupiter in Cancer is kind of like just kind of, we just want to be mindful of how we're navigating ourselves emotionally during this period. Okay. Um, the highs are going to feel more high. And the lows are gonna feel more low right now. Moon square Jupiter, it's like whatever emotion you're sitting with gets expanded. It doesn't matter what that emotion is. If you feel sad, you're just gonna feel more sadness. If you feel joy and fun, if you feel, you know, happy, you're gonna feel more of that. Like it's just whatever emotion you're already with sitting in, or whatever emotion you're already sitting with, you're gonna feel more of. Well, what I will say is are just feeling more erratic or more extreme right now. So, we were talking to last week about emotional mastery and about the Grand Water Trine really speaking to this need to master our emotions right now. And the card that had came to me last week when I was talking about this is actually one of the first decks that I got. I'm gonna show you guys. It's actually a really old deck. Yeah, it's really old. This particular one is old, but this is actually one of the first decks that I got, the Gummy Berry Tarot. One of my coworkers that I worked in banking with years ago, she ended up buying me this deck. Oh yeah, there's the King of Cups right there. So the King of Cups came to me. She ended up buying me this deck after I gave her a reading, and it was crazy because it was actually one of the first readings that I gave. And I think she was maybe my first or second tarot reading I ever gave someone. And she had just met this guy who was a Sag. She's an Aries and he's a Sag. And she had met this guy, he was in the military, and I pulled cards, and I will never forget that spread that I pulled because it was one of like the most beautiful spreads ever. And I ended up pulling the Four of Wands, the Lovers, and the Ace of Cups for her. And I told her, I said, this man is like a soulmate. This man, I think you're gonna marry him. I think you guys are gonna have kids together. I just see him being with your family. I see him coming to visit you. I think you're gonna come visit him, or go visit him soon. And sure enough, she was going to visit him. And here we are. That was back in 2020. Here we are in 2025. They're married. They have two kids together. Okay. Um, he's like joined her family, so he's like a part of her family now. So everything I told her ended up coming to fruition. And it was one of the first readings that I did. And the reason why I remember it so vividly, and the reason why it was so prominent for me, is because it was one of the first readings that I did where I gave like a prediction that I just felt so confident about. It was actually one of the first readings that I did where I just got this overwhelming feeling of like positivity. Where it was like, destiny, alignment, positivity. Like this is gonna happen. Like there was nothing icky. It was like all good. And that is so rare for me to do a reading to where I just get this like purity and this clarity and this like overwhelming sense of like good from something. It's a very rare feeling. It's doesn't happen too often, okay? Um, doesn't happen too often. But it was so interesting because what had come through at that time was also that she was getting this was like a reward for her for a lot of sacrifice that she had made for her family, even in past lives, but in this lifetime too. She had made a lot of sacrifice for like her mom and her dad and her like family and stuff. Like she had sacrificed a lot, like a lot of herself and her time and her energy and for her family. So the message that had come through as well was that this was kind of like a reward for all the sacrifice that she had done for her family leading up to that moment over the many years. So it was really cool. It was a very beautiful thing. But anyways, that's where this deck came from. So she ended up gifting me this deck. And we were talking about the King of Cups last week. So I want to talk about the Grand Water Trine and the King of Cups. Because the King of Cups is a tarot card where we have the king, but he's in the middle of this ocean. And typically in the traditional Rider-Waite deck or in a traditional Rider-Waite tarot deck, you see the King of Cups and the water around him is like it's like, crazy and it's like, there's big waves and it's unsteady. It's like unstable, unsteady, but he is sitting in the middle of these rough waters. He's sitting cemented on his throne, not moving, right? Because what the King of Cups is actually about, and the reason why this message came through last week and what's come through again, the King of Cups is about emotional mastery, emotional self mastery. Even when the waters around us, even when life is just like unsteady and unsafe and the boat is rocking and there's a hurricane and whatever, we are able to stay emotionally centered, emotionally grounded, and emotionally peaceful despite all the chaos, all the confusion, all the pain, even the loss and the grief sometimes, right? There's still this element of understanding when it comes to the King of Cups that life is an emotionally chaotic experience. But just because life is emotionally chaotic doesn't mean that we need to be emotionally chaotic, right? We can still, just like the King of Cups, stay emotionally grounded, stay emotionally focused, and stay emotionally centered, regardless of the intense emotional experiences that are happening around us, or even the experiences that are pulling out really intense, heavy emotions within us, right? Also, what I think the King of Cups is about in the Grand Water Trine in the sky, it's about understanding that emotions are something that are meant to flow through us and keep moving, and they're not meant to stagnate. But we're not meant to stagnate with them. We're not meant to sit with them. We're not meant to hoard them or hold on to them. We were talking about this last week. We were talking about the water element, how when the water element stagnates, it stops moving. That's when it gets toxic. And we can see this with still water, right? Still water, swamp water, it becomes toxic. It literally, viruses, bacteria, all this gross stuff, starts to grow when water is still not moving, right? It becomes toxic. And it's the same thing with our own emotional energy within us. When we hoard emotional experiences, when we hold on to pain and woundedness, when we identify with our victim mentality, right? When we replay and relive these like wounded stories that we have, where we have these emotionally invested, narratives that, we just replay, we hurt ourselves over and over and over again, it creates more toxicity within us and it actually emotionally stagnates us and it blocks our creativity, it blocks our love, it blocks our joy, it blocks us from going out and forming new relationships or seeking new relationships. And eventually, over time, that toxicity, that emotional toxicity that starts off in the emotional body, it ends up in the physical body, right? So over time, stagnant emotional toxic energy becomes illness, right? It becomes digestive issues, it becomes, Crohn's, it becomes IBS, it becomes, heavy periods, it becomes migraines, it becomes, another one is like PCOS for women, especially. Women are way more sensitive to the water element. So, if you are a woman, your body responds to water more so than men. Think about it, right? Your body responds to the moon. This is why women deal with breast cancer. Think about it, right? The breasts are ruled by what sign or what planet? The moon. Cancer, the moon, right? So we think about the amount of women that get breast cancer. It's an emotional affliction. And the breasts have everything to do with what? With nurturing, caring for others, providing support, breastfeeding. What is cancer? What is the boob? The boob breastfeeds. It nurtures, right? So a lot of women they're dealing with the issues around the breasts and breast cancer and around their womb and around PCOS and heavy periods and reproductive issues and all this stuff is because they're storing emotional trauma from their family, from their mother, from their past. They're storing that trauma in the body, in the breasts, in the um, uterus, in the fallopian tubes, in the body, right? So that's why it's important that we give ourselves permission to emotionally express, emotionally clear this stuff out, to let shit go. We got to forgive, we got to forget, we got to let this shit go so that we can not only keep our bodies healthy and well, that we can also allow ourselves to stay in flow with the water element. We always want to be, letting the water element, the water energy, the emotional energy within us be in flux, be in flow. We never want it to hold on to it. We never want it to stagnate. We never want it to harden, to get frozen as well, because that's another thing that happens, right? Um, our emotional energy can get frozen or can get cold, and it could get stagnant in a way that it becomes impenetrable, right? So things like that. Kim says, my endometriosis was a trauma my mom went through that was stored in my womb that I used Reiki to heal. So there we go. Yes, there we go. Coming full circle. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that, my love. I appreciate you. All right, let's keep going. Let me put this gummy bear deck away. Actually, let me pull a card real quick. What's the collective message for us, Spirit? I'm gonna pull a card. Oh, desahogar. Talk about it. For anyone who speaks Spanish, it's important to desahogar, translated to undrowning. Oh. Oh, look at the card that came out, the Nine of Cups. We love this for the collective. The Nine of Cups for the collective. This is about, baby, pursue the dream, pursue the vision, reach for more, ask for more. Okay. The Nine of Cups is about, this is the card of wish fulfillment. This is the wish fulfillment card. This is the genie card. I call this the wishes granted card. This is the, rubbing the lamp and asking for your three wishes card. And so to me, uh, oh, this is also about telling us to believe in the impossible, to believe that miracles happen. The Nine of Cups is a card of miracles. It's a card of magic. It's a card of divine intervention. Okay. And so the Nine of Cups is telling me that collectively we're being looked on upon. Spirit is looking at us. We're being divinely guided. We're being divinely blessed. We're being divinely, we're being we're being supported, divinely supported. We got to lean in though. We got to believe. We got to have a big part of luck is faith. They've actually done studies on this. People who are more positive or more optimistic are more lucky, and better things happen to them. Look at this. October 5th, 2025. Quantum physics says luck isn't random. Expectation reshapes outcome. Your beliefs, what you expect to happen influences what will actually happen. Your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, your sentiments, your hopes, your wishes, your dreams, your fears, your doubts, all of that has energetic influence on the outcomes of your lived experience. So luck is not a random thing. Luck, good, positive things that happen to people, actually comes from a mindset. It's actually because you're more optimistic or more positive. Good things happen to people that are a little bit more optimistic or a little bit more positive, or that, think highly of life and themselves and things like this. All right, let's keep going. So let's get back to astrology of the week. Okay. So Moon Chiron today, Moon Chiron square Jupiter. Woundedness around anger, around disempowerment, woundedness around the family, intense emotions, high emotions, low emotions, no emotions. Moon Chiron, there could be some woundedness that comes up today. So then tomorrow we have the moon going to Taurus, and the moon is exalted in Taurus. And the moon in Taurus is responding to Venus, who just went into Sag. So the moon in Taurus, Tuesday, Wednesday, going to Thursday, because we have our full moon on Thursday, can kind of like open up new doors, or it can kind of begin something new for us in some type of way. I'm just thinking about the moon in Taurus completing the moon's transit through Taurus Tuesday, Wednesday is completing our new moon in Scorpio cycle. It's wrapping up our new moon in Scorpio cycle, and it's preparing us for our full moon in Gemini. So, there can be with whatever the new moon meant for you, whatever the new moon in Scorpio was supposed to be for you, especially if you're a fixed sign, if you're a Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, the moon in Taurus over the next few days can can trigger an event, can wrap something up for you, can reveal something to you or something that's tied to the new moon. Okay. So, but I don't, also, it's interesting how I said starting something or beginning something new with the moon in Taurus, because Venus just went into a new sign. We also are coming out of a new moon in Scorpio cycle. So, there, if you're planning on something new, if you want to start something new, if you are feeling like, there's something foundational that you want to get going, maybe a new foundation you want to start setting or something. Think about that, the moon in Taurus over the next few days. Okay. The moon is exalted in Taurus though. So in general, I do think we're going to be feeling a little bit more grounded, a little bit more stable, especially tomorrow with the moon in Taurus. Let me see. Hold on. When's the moon? What time is the moon going to Taurus? But it's responding to Venus and Sag though. So this is why it's feeling kind of fun. It's feeling kind of feisty. Oh yeah, the moon goes into Taurus like right around midnight. Yeah, right around midnight. The moon goes into Taurus. Ba-da-ba-da-bum-bum-bum. Actually, no, not around midnight. The moon goes into Taurus on tonight at 12. What is that? 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Pacific time. The moon will be in Taurus 8 p.m. tonight. So we're wrapping up our moon in Aries. Yes, and then we get the moon in Taurus. Okay, cool. Is the moon making any aspects? The moon's going to square Pluto. So we just want to, these moon Pluto squares can be very meaningful for people or they cannot be. But I think with the moon in Taurus coming out of Mercury retrograde, the moon in Taurus on Wednesday opposing Mercury and Uranus. Oh yeah, moon's going to oppose Mercury and Uranus. Yeah, look at on Wednesday. The moon is going to conjoin Uranus and is going to oppose Mercury. So I think Wednesday is a very busy day for people, activity wise. Wednesday may be a day that's it's full of important decision making, or there could be something unerratic or something unexpected. Another thing I've noticed during the new moon cycle is people falling and people tripping and people's mechanical stuff breaking down. Well, it was also in combination. It was because of the Mercury retrograde, but with Mercury opposite Uranus and the moon hitting Uranus on Wednesday, we might need to. Oh, he's getting surgery that day. Oh, it's a good day to get surgery. I think it's a good day. Yeah, it's a good day to get surgery. Um, on his nose. That's so interesting. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because I've been talking about Scorpio being the sign of surgery, and I've had surgery come up as a topic for the last like 3 or 4 lives. It's interesting that the surgeries keeps coming up as a topic actually, but it makes a lot of sense that he'd be getting surgery on Wednesday because the moon's going to be in Taurus opposing Mercury in Scorpio. Mercury just went retrograde, so he's going to be unconscious. I'm assuming. It looks like it looks like they're making him unconscious. They're putting him to sleep, but. Um, he's a Sag Sun too from his work accident last December. Oh yeah. Well, Sag has in the eighth house, they have. Oh, it's interesting. Sag Sun has Cancer in the eighth house where Jupiter's at. So that's going to go really well for him. It's going to be really good for him. Yeah, Jupiter's protecting him. Also, very interesting how I was saying that karmic things for mutable people, Pisces, Gemini, Sag, Virgo, karmic experiences or kind of fated things that they have to deal with this month, but specifically during this full moon cycle. Because the full moon that's going to be in Gemini is squaring the nodes. Okay. So we have a lot of kind of karmic fated things, like things that are just going to happen or that have to happen, or things that may feel out of our control, but also we're destinies at fate. So it doesn't have to be bad. This could be like also really good positive things happening. Okay. Um, so, all right. Moon square Pluto tomorrow. That can bring up some really intense emotions. Moon in Taurus squaring Pluto. That can trigger some of our trust issues, or that can trigger some of our obsessive compulsive tendencies. Okay. And then the moon moves on to oppose Mercury on Wednesday and then hit a conjunction with Uranus on Wednesday, December 3rd. So this is where things are. Wednesday looks like a very unconventional day. It looks like a very busy day. But all in all, the moon in Taurus is a positive transit, especially on Wednesday. There, it could be a really good positive thing on Wednesday, mainly because the moon's exalted in Taurus. The moon is sextile Jupiter and Saturn, and the moon's also opposing Mercury. So we have this beautiful grand water trine on Wednesday. Well, it's like Mercury's coming into the grand water trine that perfects on Sunday, but we're already feeling its effects. We've been feeling its effects, and it kind of becomes highlighted or becomes prominent Tuesday, Wednesday, because the moon's in Taurus. And the moon in Taurus is activating the new moon that we had 2 weeks ago, but it's also activating the grand water trine. So this is a very good, positive day. This looks very, very optimistic and very positive. Also, what's really interesting is Wednesday going into Thursday. If there's also any aspects that I don't bring up that you guys want to know more about, or that you guys see that I'm missing because I am looking at the chart and there's just a lot going on, you can feel free to ask about that, okay? For those of you in the comments and those of you that are dialoguing with me. Um, so then on Wednesday, the moon at the very end of Wednesday goes into Gemini, and now we're in our full moon energy. Okay, we're in our full moon energy. But as the moon goes in Gemini, the moon trines Pluto, and it separates from the trine with Pluto, and then the moon's going to hit this opposition with the sun, and the moon opposite the sun is our full moon. So what I will say is the moon in Taurus leading up to the full moon on Thursday, as the moon goes into Gemini late Wednesday evening, and then we have our full moon in Gemini on Thursday evening. Um, that the moon is full now. The moon is full. So the full moon in Gemini is going to be revealing and showing us things around where Mercury's placed, but also around our Gemini house. So, there could be information that you get full moon in Gemini, letters, phone calls. There can be, a cousin that you talk to, an aunt, an uncle that you talk to, a sibling that you talk to. There could be some good positive information that comes in with this full moon that is about starting something new. This feels like, even though it's a full moons are usually about closure and release or endings. This full moon doesn't feel that way. And let me tell you why. It's because the ruler of the full moon, Mercury, just came out of retrograde and is now picking up speed and moving forward. But Mercury is going to form this trine with Jupiter and with Saturn even in the full moon. I mean, I'm looking at the full moon itself on Thursday. Mercury's already in this trine with Saturn and Jupiter. And then that trine to Saturn and Jupiter perfects on Thursday and on Friday and Saturday of this week. Oh, I'm sorry, on Saturday and Sunday, on the 6th and the 7th. So we have Saturn trine Jupiter exact on Saturday, December 6th, and we have Mercury trine Saturn exact. We have Mercury trine Jupiter exact on Saturday, December 6th. We have Mercury trine Saturn exact on Sunday, December 7th. So we have this beautiful. So I really do think on Monday morning, when the moon goes into Leo, when the moon's going to be in Leo on Monday, but I'm going to talk about the moon in Cancer on the weekend. Oh, yeah, I'm going to talk about the moon in Cancer, but I really feel like people are waking up to really good positive news on Monday morning, December 8th. Because on Monday morning, the moon is on Monday and Tuesday of next week, the moon trines Venus and the sun. This looks really good. Yeah. We have moon, yeah, moon trine sun on Tuesday of next week, which will be the 9th. And then on Monday, we have moon trine Venus. We have moon in Leo trine Venus in Sag. Right as the moon leaves Cancer and is separating from Jupiter. So if we, if we're talking about this weekend, this upcoming, this is a really good weekend. It's a very fun weekend. Who's going to visit their family? Who's hanging out with their mommy and their daddy and their family or their grandparents? Or who's also leaving for vacation this weekend? Because we have Moon Jupiter in Cancer together. So so let's go back. Let's go back. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's go back. Go back to Thursday. Let's go back to our full moon. Okay. Because the full moon happens on Thursday with the sun opposite the moon, right? Um, Mars is at the only thing I think is difficult about the full moon is 22-degree Mars and a 22-degree Mercury and a 22-degree Chiron. We have Mars trine Chiron 22. We have Mercury exactly at 22. And the 22nd degree is a little bit of a karmic degree. It's a little bit of a tough degree. The 22nd degree has a lot to do with tragedy and hardship. Um, and so I'm just looking at this 22-degree activation of the full moon, and I think where things can be tough or difficult, it's going to be around particular things. Okay. Um, Information being divulged that is difficult to accept for the full moon. So we may find out a secret, we may get a piece of information that's very painful or it's very hurtful or that is where we feel like a betrayal. And this cannot be with us. This can also be with family members because there's going to be a lot of this is a very family centered, there's a lot of other people around. We're just, come on, it's the holiday season, right? It's November, so, or it's December, right? We're coming out of Thanksgiving, we're going to Christmas. So, it feels like this is like a family drama, family secret, family stuffing like this, okay? That could be part of it, okay? The other thing can be about people who are sick or people that are ill, all right? So there could be an aunt, an uncle, a sibling, a cousin, or something like this. Someone that we find out that they've been diagnosed with something or they have some kind of illness or sickness, and it's like really, really sad. The 22nd degree is Capricorn. Okay. It's ruled by Saturn. Um, so there's that. The other thing can be miscommunication issues that lead to an argument or a fight or a fallout because we're arguing about beliefs. We're arguing about our opinions, our ideas, or we're arguing about truth. So someone is saying that's not the truth, and the other person is saying that's the truth, and the other person's like, no, that's not the truth. So there could be a lack of clarity around truth. There could be arguments around truth and things like this. So just these are some challenging things I want you guys to be aware of, okay? With the full moon. All right. Also, we have Mars right next to the sun for the full moon. Mars in the seventh house. This can be about fighting or arguing with business partners, with spouses, and with your lovers and stuff like this. So just be careful of that as well. Okay. Be a little mindful of that as well. The South Node's in the fourth house, though. I don't know. I kind of feel like, you know, for some of you, you're going to realize that there's people close to you. This holiday season, you're going to realize that there's people close to you that have been dealing with battles or burdens or have been dealing with financial struggles that they haven't been honest with anyone about. And now that information comes to light and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't know you were that much in debt. I didn't know that you were this behind on your rent. I didn't know it's like that. And like people are coming together to try to like problem solve and fix situation. Okay. So there's going to be a lot of people being very vulnerable during this full moon. A lot of people kind of like opening up and sharing truths that are very hard or very difficult. Also, I just got to say this, living situations, difficult, challenging living situations that are coming to enclose, people getting kicked out, people having to make a move, like living situation wise, that they don't want to make, but that they have to make, or it's like they're forced to make a living situation change. Is like a collective thing. And it may not be now, but it can be on the horizon. It could be coming in the next like 3 months or 6 months, where it's like we have to change houses, we have to change, rooms, we have to move because of the neighbor, because of this. But I don't know, just for some reason, or because we can't afford this anymore, something like that. Okay. So something like that. Okay. So those are just some things to watch out for. All right. So then on Thursday, we have our full moon. That's the big thing on Thursday. So then the moon keeps moving, and the moon is going to oppose Mars. That 22-degree Mars. So we wake up on Friday morning, Pacific time. We wake up on Friday morning, 6 a.m., to a Moon Mars opposition. So Friday morning, December 5th, the moon's in Gemini, 24 degrees, directly opposite Mars. Mars is building into a square with Saturn. Moon Mars, okay? We can wake up feeling very ambitious, very excited, very inspired, very motivated. We can also wake up feeling a little agitated, irritated, or feeling like we got to have important conversations, okay? I will say Gemini is a sign of what? Talking, conversations, asking questions. So with the full moon in Gemini, the moon in Gemini opposite Mars, full moon in Gemini Thursday, moon opposite Mars on Friday, I will not be surprised if for many people there's something important that we got to talk about. There's something important that you got to discuss. You got to talk to your sibling about it. You got to talk to your cousin about it. You got to talk to your boss about it. You got to talk to your kids about it. You got to talk to your spouse. There's a really important conversation or some really important communication that is going to be happening Thursday, Friday. Okay, is what it feels like. So then the moon squares Saturn, Neptune that day as well. The moon is also square Saturn and Neptune. So I don't know. It feels like I don't know. We're definitely there's some people going out having fun on Friday night and going out on a date and stuff like this. But there's definitely some confusing energy around. There's definitely some kind of wishy-washy energy around. Don't be surprised if people cancel plans on Friday because something unexpected comes up, or they double booked, or they have something that, oh yeah, something came up with my family. I gotta go visit this person in the hospital. Oh yeah, I gotta leave for the weekend. I gotta go here to go fix the property. I don't know, something like this. Okay. Friday night. Okay. Going into Saturday. But then on Saturday, the moon goes into Cancer. And the moon in Cancer puts us in this energy. Well, the moon's actually going to be, uh, what is this called? The moon's going to be void, of course. So the moon's going to be void Friday. Friday night going to Saturday morning, the moon's not making any aspects, any planets. Okay. So the moon is void Saturday. So maybe feeling just a little kind of like, oh, a little tired, a little, just stay at home energy Saturday morning, especially. Um, But then the moon makes an aspect to the North Node on Saturday night. And then the moon hits 13 degrees. Yeah, the moon's trining the North Node. So the moon comes out of its void period Saturday afternoon, going Saturday evening. And then on Sunday, that's when everything comes into alignment. Sunday's a big day astrologically because the moon conjoins Jupiter. Yeah, it literally like it's like Sunday morning at 9 a.m. The moon is at 24 degrees Cancer with Jupiter, trining Saturn, trining Mercury. Mercury also goes to that 25th degree from 24 to 25 from Saturday to Sunday and forms this grand trine. So we have Moon, Jupiter, trine Mercury, trine Saturn. We have Lilith, Neptune also kind of in on the mix on this grand trine. So we have another grand water trine again on Sunday. And Sunday is looking like it just looks like this is a very blessed, opportunistic, beautiful day. This looks like it's a feel-good day. But also, I want you guys to keep in mind Mercury, as he's coming to the last degrees of Scorpio, before he goes back into Sag, right? Because he started his retrograde in Sag, went back to Scorpio. Now he's direct, so he's moving forward. He's reclaiming his steps in Scorpio. He's gonna go back into Sag. Well, Mercury's moving into an opposition with Uranus. Okay. Mercury's moving into opposition with Uranus into next week. So this Mercury-Uranus opposition, Mercury's going to hit that 28th degree, which is that new moon point that we had 2 weeks ago. And that Mercury opposite Uranus could trigger some kind of, it's time to free ourselves, it's time to break away, it's time to make that important decision, it's time to overcome the fear, it's time to break, I don't know, there's something erratic, there's something unconventional, there's something different where we may decide that we want to do something or move in a direction that is very unexpected or that's very rebellious or that's very non-traditional, that's very against our own norm. Sunday going into Monday. But this feels good. This feels positive because this kind of erratic shift, a change or decision, it feels like it's good. It's positive. Gemini rising, Scorpio sun, Taurus moon. Just found out you're pregnant. Oh my God. Wow. That's so crazy. Congratulations. Well, that's some Mercury retrograde news. That's some new moon opposite Uranus. You find out you're pregnant unexpectedly, right? It was unplanned, unplanned pregnancy. You like my wicked colors? Someone said something about my wicked colors, like I think 30, 45 minutes ago. And I just looked at the colors and yeah. I saw the second one, by the way. It was really good. I've been really enjoying my vacation. I've been catching up on a lot of anime. I've been watching some really important animes, some really important shows. Yep, not planned. Yeah, Uranus. That's what you get with Uranus things. Uranus is about unexpected pregnancies, unexpected births. Whenever it's so crazy to see because you can also see when a child has a strong Uranus signature in their chart. Um, when a child is born with a strong Uranus signature, it's usually because they were conceived unexpectedly or they were born out of chaos or they were born in a way that was unplanned. Like myself, I have a strong Uranus signature in my chart, and my parents I was actually I was conceived in between birth control timing stuff. My mom, so I actually was conceived right in between, like my mom was coming to the end of one birth control period and then she was about to start like another birth control thing. And then that's when I came. You have two that weren't planned. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a Uranus thing. Yes, you pointed that out in my reading. I have Uranus in the fifth in Sag or Uranus in the fifth. Yeah. Yep, I was immaculately conceived. I was not supposed to be here. Well, obviously I'm supposed to be here because I'm here, but my parents did not plan me. They were not ready. I was in between birth control. In between two birth control periods. Your daughter's Sag. Yes, you pointed that out in your reading. I have Uranus and Sag, and your daughter's Sag rising. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because you'll notice even with your unplanned kids, they'll have a Uranus. They'll be connected to your Uranus in some type of way. Unplanned too. My dad told my mom he couldn't have kids, and I have the sun Uranus conjunct. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, see, unexpected. Yeah, unexpected Korea. That's cool. That's so cool to see that in the charts. Oh, my friend just messaged me. That's so cool. The rising just changed. It's 150. Let's see what's on the rising sign right now. Oh, Aries on the rising. Is that right? We started off with Aquarius on the rising. Is that right? Aries on the rising right now? That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is that awkward time of day where the rising starts moving really fast. Also, the right like winter is a very interesting period with timing when it comes to looking at charts. The days are the days are shorter and the nights are longer, right? So But yeah, my love, so we'll wrap up this week with a beautiful grand trine between Jupiter, Moon in Cancer, Saturn, Neptune in Pisces, and Mercury, Lilith in Scorpio. We're gonna see a lot of forward movement. We're gonna start to see a lot of forward movement with this full moon in Gemini this month, especially. We're gonna start to see a lot of forward movement with people, mainly because Saturn and Jupiter or Saturn and Mercury are moving or have gone direct. So Capricorn, Aquarius, especially Virgo, Gemini, especially those of you that are that are ruled by Saturn and Mercury, we're gonna start to see a lot of them moving forward in a lot of different ways, or their life opening up and life expanding and going in new directions and things like this. Okay. So yeah. But yeah, my loves, we'll do a full moon overview. I didn't even do a live on the new moon last a few weeks ago, but we'll do a full moon overview. I'll talk about the full moon in Gemini in more details. We'll do that on Thursday morning, okay? The morning of the full moon. Okay. But I love you all so much. Also, just want to let you all know I am open up for readings. I just reopened up my calendar. I'm available for readings this week and next week. Let me look at what's going on with the holidays though. This week, next week. Oh yeah, and the following week too, actually. So the next 3 weeks I'll be open for readings. The week of the 22nd to the 26th, I think I'm gonna be closed for readings, maybe from the 22nd until the 6th or 7th, but then I'll be open up for readings fully, regularly, back to my regular scheduling in January for sure. But I am open up for readings for the next 3 weeks. Okay. So if you guys are interested in booking a reading with me, let me know. I also I'm trying to figure out how to do it, but I'm offering gift cards. So if you want to buy someone a reading for Christmas, I'm gonna give you all some more deets on that. I'm working on that right now, actually, or I'm gonna be working on that like today. So if you are interested in buying someone a reading and gifting them a reading, just DM me and let me know for now. Or if you are my client, you can text me. If you're someone that's worked with me in the past and or you're like one of my regulars, and you want to buy someone a reading, you can always text me or email me, or you can just DM me, and we can get that going. Okay. But I love you all so much. Mwah. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you. Um, and yeah, make sure you take care of yourselves. Be well. You know, this is sad season is a season of joy and it's a season of family and it's a season of, celebration and gratitude and it's a season of kind of expansion and travel. It's similar with Gemini season, Gemini and Sag on this axis. It's like these are seasons where we go back to visit the people that we really care about, or we go back to connect to the people that really care about us, so that we're really emotionally invested in, right? So, um, this idea of the hearth and the home and us gathering around the fire, that's all Sag energy, gathering around the tree for Christmas, benevolence, the idea of benevolence, Santa comes and gives us gifts for being good, right? Giving us free shit. Santa, that's all Jupiter, it's all Sag, that's all Sag energy, Santa Claus especially the Coca-Cola American version of Santa Claus, is very Jupiter. Jolly old Saint Nicholas, the bringer of gifts, with the rosy red cheeks and the red nose, it's all Jupiter, it's all Sag. That's all Jupiter energy. So, yes. But I love you all so much. Thank you all for being here. I'm gonna go ahead and post this. Um, on Instagram. I'm also going to post this to YouTube in like about an hour or two. So if you guys weren't able to tune in, for those of you that maybe you want to watch the playback, but you want to watch it on YouTube, well, I'll have that uploaded in the next hour or so. So, okay, but I love you all so much. Take care of yourselves. Be well. We're wrapping up 2025. Let's go out with a bang, okay? I love you guys. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you around. You're welcome. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. All right, bye.